Okay, so in this video, we're going to work on finishing up our Swift project of the game of war. And the first thing I'm going to show you is where we left off, we had a situation where we weren't storing cards for when there was war, which if you recall, if you played a game of war, it's when you and your opponent have the same value card. So then you deal 3 cards, turn over the last one, and whoever has the highest card at that point wins all of them. Well, we weren't dealing with that situation. So to rectify that, the first thing I created here was an array called war cards, which basically is going to track all the cards that were dealt during war. The first 3 cards and then the last card that's turned over to see who wins all the cards. So let me show you how I use that. So this is of type integer. And let's go down to I believe it's the deal war method, which is right here, right? And so you'll see that we produced 2 random cards, right? One for the computer and one for you. And on the next line here is where I'm actually storing them into the war cards array, and that's using the .append method that will add the values that are produced right above it, right? And so, as usual, all this code that I'm showing you here, I'm going to provide, so you don't have to worry about that. And let me see. So there's a few other things that I believe we do down here. Yes. So I also deal with the situation for the end of war here when we had already had this, but when our little counter called XX is over is equal to 4 or greater, we are done with war because the 4th card is, remember, when it's over. And I also added this game over Boolean variable, which I will describe momentarily. But let me show you how I use the war cards array to distribute the cards that were used during war. So we have this little if statement here that determines who won. So we had already, in an earlier video, determined that this determines the value of the card that you were given. And so we use this little math equation and we compare the results from the computer's card to your card. If the computer has won, then we're going to go through a for loop here. This is a for each loop in Swift that basically says, hey, for all the elements in the war cards array, we're going to go ahead and name them CRDS, short for cards. And so it's basically starting at 0 in that array and going through to the end. And so we're going to add them to the computer cards 1's array. Okay. And then since the computer has won, we're going to change the label for the computer to green to indicate that they've won. And then lastly, we reset the war cards array so that it's erased so that the next time we have war, it'll hold a new set of cards. And then we do pretty much the same thing. We check to see if you won, and then if that's true, we save it to your array, and so on. And lastly, we deal with the scenario if there's a tie. If there's a tie, then we're going to just call this method one more time and deal out another card to see determine a winner. We'll keep on going until there's no tie, right? And we have a winner. That deals with the war situation. Now let's look at the end of the game situation. There's a variable that I created called game over, which is set to false. Actually, that's not where I created. I created it right up here. So game over Boolean, which can either be true or false. I set it initially in the view did load to false because when we start the screen, the game is just starting. It's not over, right? So it should be false. And as I showed you previously, we're going to use it in a few different situations right here. So this is the IB action that gets called when a card is dealt. If game over is equal to true, then we're going to do a few things. We're going to display it on the screen. It says game over to a label, and this is new as well. put that right here. This is an IB outlet of type UI label that is called progress. That basically is just going to display it, at the beginning of the game. I have it saying game is on, and then at the end it says game over. We could put a UI alert view in here. Actually, probably would be a good idea, so you have an actual really strong indicator that the game is over. But regardless, I'll just show you here. So this little if-else statement checks to see if your card's one array has more elements in it than the computer's cards won. That would be an indicator that you won the game because you won more cards from him. We could have gotten complicated and looked at all the different values and determined the winner that way, but usually it's cards won that determines the winner, right? And then we change the background of the label over top of the cards to indicate who won, right? So we change that to green, kind of like we've been doing all along. So that's how we're using the game over. I also use it down in the actual random card, the get ran to method. Right here, if cardspot.count is equal to 0, then game over is true. So basically, when all the cards have been removed from the card spot array, then the game is over. All right, I think that makes that's pretty clear. Remember, the game spot, the card spot array was right here, and that basically just holds values for every card in our deck, right? And so once they've all been removed, the game is over. Let me see, is there anything else that I needed to show you? I think that is it. The next thing, though, I'm going to create a follow-up video to this, and I'm going to show you how to use NS user defaults to store a high value. For instance, if you won 30 cards, see if you can do better the next game, and it'll compare your results from the next game to what's stored in the NS user default. So that'll be my next video. So this is the game in the progress label I was talking about. When we start the game, at the beginning here it says game in progress. I'm going to try to go through until we get this down to 0 so we can look at the end of game situation, how that's dealt with. Come on. All right, so it's at 0 now. We will have won, so as soon as I hit the next time to try to deal another one, it says game over, and this indicates I have won, which is accurate. So that's the end of it. So I guess the last thing you could incorporate in here is change this to play again, and click it, and you just have to reset your card spot array, and then you could play again. Let me know if you have any questions, and please subscribe.